Welcome back to the Cheltenham Exchange. I'm back from a short break. I think I've been out the picture. Alex has been filling in far more professionally than I ever do. So,
not sure about that, OJ.
I definitely would say so, Alex. Loved the round of Twitter roundups that you guys did. Great stuff. So we're back with a special tonight where we've got a special guest interview with the McNeill Family racing manager, Mr. Iain Turner, who's joining us as he's meant to be joining the 70th birthday party. So we not only are we honoured, but we're incredibly thankful for him giving us our time. So thank you, Iain.
Not at all.
We've got John's with us as usual, Highwayman. We've got Alex, and we've got the boss man, Iain. Keeps us all in line. And as you can see, we've got the honorary McNeill colours up tonight to go along with the interview. So
yeah,
we're going to pepper Iain with some questions about his role and what goes on. And then no doubt the lads are going to be trying to glean some magic bits of info on the horses and so on for a week's time. It all kicks off in a week's time and anything going forward. So, first of all, Iain, thank you ever so much for joining us. We really are grateful.
Not at all. Thanks for inviting Max.
Oh, not at all. So, yes, your role as racing manager. How long have you been with the McNeills and how did you get involved to begin with?
I don't really know. It's sort of been going a while now with Max sort of increasing it, and then a few years ago it sort of became a little bit more formal. And I was just a friend of Max's, really, who, we used to go racing, and he'd had a bit of bad luck on horses that he'd bought in the early days that maybe hadn't fulfilled promise. And we were talking one day at Royal Ascot, and he asked me about a horse that he'd just been put, and that's what I thought. And should I thought he should buy the horse, and it was coming from France, and it was a horse called Walk On, and I blagged it, bluffed it, guessed whatever way you think, and said, yeah, that looks like a good one. Go ahead and do it. And it was obviously Max and Family's first Grade 1 winner.
Yeah.
Won a couple that year, second in a Paddy Power December Gold Cup, Topham. It just sort of started, I guess, with that one, and continued through the journeys of Mill Chief, Bermetti, and then on to sort of the World's End and horses like that.
Brilliant.
So, no, look, it's just been an ongoing thing. And, yeah, look, we're getting, I suppose we're getting interested in more horses, but we're sort of sharing more in partnerships with friends and sort of getting a bit more out there with a few more different trainers. Initially, Lorney Hill trained Max's first winner, ridden by Andrew Thornton, and then it sort of moved on to Kingy, Alan King, and he was sort of the sole trainer. And then we sort of expanded it up to other trainers. And then in the last few years, we opened up into Ireland, initially with John Quealy, when we sent Jingle over from Paul Nicholls, and then sort of more recently now with Gordon.
Brilliant. So in your role as racing manager, what kind of input do you have in terms of targets and where horses go and so on?
It's all a team effort, really, between the trainer, myself, Adrian Heskin, and obviously Max. I think we really, if the trainer agrees, or I'll speak to the trainer what I think, see what he comes back with, and if we've got a difference of opinion, we'll then go and speak to Max and Adrian, see what they think. But ultimately, it'll always come down to the trainer. If they're really not keen on going somewhere, then we'll go. You've got to go with what the trainers say, because if you're not, then what's the point of employing it as a trainer?
Okay.
So it's a combination of them, ideas and teamwork, and I guess that sort of two heads are better than one, and then in this case, sort of probably 4 or 5 are better than one. So we try and just work between the team and hopefully get more right than we get wrong.
And so I guess sometimes the head's got to rule over the heart. I'm thinking in particular, just looking at what's to come next week, and Threeunderthrufive in the Ultima, which is obviously sponsored by Max the Racer. And I was reading about how the horse was named. I mean, I know Alex is a big golf fan as I was, and the fact that I believe Max's father Ted was leading the 1951 British Open on 3 under after 5 holes, and that's where the name came from. And was Max named after the great Max Faulkner as well? I've read that.
He was, who was Ted McNeill's best mate. So
fantastic.
Max,
it's a great
Max
story.
Was named after Ted Faulkner, and obviously we've got 3Underthrufive, which is what Ted was. But you can guess what happened because we've not got a horse called Tits Up after 6.
Love it.
So we do have a few names on record that we have reserved, but we couldn't get that one. So it was Port Rush. Port Rush was actually Ted's local course, and Ted was the pro at Port Rush, well, Royal Port Rush. And before Ted's father, Max's grandfather, Huey, was also involved at Port Rush. And there's actually a hole there called Huey's, which is after Max's grandfather and Ted's dad. So he was stood on the tee, the 6th, on a hole that he knew very, very well, and looked up at the leaderboard and saw that he was tying for the lead, I think it was. And he then went into a greenside bunker. And whilst it went a bit wrong, he still managed to make the cut. So still quite a good story. And we did actually want to name Port Rush Ted Royal Port Rush after the golf course, but the golf course turned down the application when we asked if we could use their name, and they wouldn't let us.
Right.
So we had to go with Port Rush Ted instead, which actually I think is a pretty cool name in its own right, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so no, that's how we came with Port Rush Ted, who again, he's quite injury prone, but he was a pretty good horse when he was right.
Absolutely. Yeah, so 3Underthrufive and the Ultima. It's
you say heart ahead. It's every year sort of Max will give certain days, races, etc. that he wants to have runners at, or so for instance he loves the Scottish Grand National meeting because he spent a bit of time up near Ayr, and obviously Cheltenham's and Aintree, but there'll be other meetings through the year, and he says, look, we need a runner in the Ultima. We've had a few in the past. I think the Wolf ran in it, Kilteely Briggs ran in it, but this year, sort of as soon as 3 Under ran at Warwick, when he crossed the line, Max was on holiday, Paul Nicholls was on holiday, and I was at a wet Warwick, and it wasn't raining where them two were. And I just straight away came through and said, sort of to Adrian, Ultima, then one of the big staying handicaps, and he agreed, and Max and Paul both said exactly the same thing. So on that was occasion where we had a chat, and it was all right, and that was it then. Plan founded for the Ultima in a week today. So fantastic. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely, fingers crossed. We'll be cheering on for you, that's for sure.
Exactly. So no, look, it'll be brilliant, and look, he's probably a little bit high in the weights, to be honest. I thought we'd have got a little bit more weight off after Warwick, but we dropped a pound, and he goes well. He's pretty uncomplicated. He'll go on the better ground if it's there, but he does have form on some softer ground as well. Albeit he didn't probably get home at Warwick in the ground, but that was over slightly further. So no, look, he's in good form. He had an away day to Lambourne last week. I think he went up there with, might have been one of the other Cheltenham novice hurdle horses that Paul's got quite high hopes for. And they just had a sort of breeze at Lambourne, bit of an away day, and all went well. And now it's that time where you don't want to be speaking to Paul Nicholls. Well, you don't want to speak to any trainers because they can only get in touch if it's bad news.
Right.
Yes. So that they're all very much under note. Do not call, or if you do call, text beforehand, just with a thumbs up or thumbs down. So I know what to expect. So yeah, no. So exactly like that. So yeah, hopefully I don't hear from Paul now until probably. Well, I'll see him at Sandown on Saturday.
That's it. Yeah. Well, brings us nicely along. I was going to ask, ahead of a festival such as this now, and with it, within a kind of a week of the festival, what's the prep like now for horses that are likely to be going there? What sort of things are going on? And
I think really, I mean, look, you'd have to ask a sort of trainer, sort of more so than me, I guess. But I think the work's just about done now. It's just ticking over. Final school, final piece of work, keeping everything crossed, and pray to God that you go to bed in the morning and you wake up and everything's still sound.
Yeah.
It's, there's not much really more to do now in a week.
No.
If a horse isn't fit, I think you'll struggle to get them fit now, and if they can't jump, well, they're not going to learn to jump in a week. So,
absolutely.
No, I think look, I mean, I just really think now it's just a case of keeping everything ticking over. The real work's done.
Fantastic.
Iain, I just wanted to know a bit more about sort of sourcing horses, really. So how does that process work? Do you source the horses and then you decide which trainer they go to, or does a trainer then come to you guys and say, we've got this horse that we've identified? How does that process work? And if you do buy a horse, how do you decide which trainer to then send them to?
Well, it's a combination probably of reasons. The bloodstock agents get in touch if they find a horse that they think we might be interested in. They know the general type of horse that Max might be interested. Myself and Adrian do a lot of work ourselves. I was at Lismore, for instance, on Sunday at the point-to-point over there. We'll be at various sales through the year, store horses, and look, you just got to be around and have as many sets of eyes looking for you really as possible as you try to find it. Hope you get a bit of luck. And if a specific trainer is involved in the buying process, then obviously that trainer will be the recipient of the horse. You couldn't ask Gordon Elliott for his idea of a horse and then send it to Paul Nicholls, for instance.
Yeah.
So I think that's how it works. And if it was a horse that we found ourselves, or a bloodstock agent independently came to us and said, I think I found one, we would generally maybe try to look at the type of horse it is and what trainer that would suit, and what the program, etc. is. So I guess probably the last horse we bought that way would have been Spartan Army.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought that with good friends Paddy and Scott Bryceland, who, as well as owning 3-Card Drag with Max, they've got Magical Zoe themselves for the Mare's Novice.
Wow.
So we got them involved. They came in, and we bought it through Jerry McGrath. And if you look at a potential dual-purpose horse from one of our existing trainers, there's probably no one better than Alan King. So King just was the natural choice for that sort of dual-purpose juvenile hurdler back on the flat to go to. If we were to buy a horse at the sales at Cheltenham, next week, you might look at it, and if Threeunderthrufive had sort of ran well in an Ultima, then Paul's obviously done very well with that, so you go there. Or if maybe Ascari at 10 wins a plate or runs very well in that, you might put Gordon or Thunder Rock in the Brown Advisory. So there'd be an element of I guess possibly recency bias, but also how horses have performed, and rewarding trainers who have done well. They maybe get one. And I think the other sort of final thing probably is we buy more horses with partners, so you have to be aware what they want, or what trainers they want to use them, where they would go. So just any combination of reasons really on that level, I guess. Probably Paul Nicholls you'd associate with proper maybe national hunt horses, I guess. National hunt breds, your typical chasers, you know a Paul Nicholls horse in the pilot, don't you? Big fine stamp of horse, going to be a staying chaser, you'd imagine. Gordon probably a bit similar to that. Whereas King, he's probably a bit more. Nicky Henderson's probably more of a 2-mile, 2.5 mile than a 3-miler. Stereotypical horse. So you try and fix it, and that's where Adrian would be quite useful, because he obviously goes into yards and rides the horses and knows what the gallops are like far better than me, and he will have an idea on, I think this horse would suit him, or I think that horse would suit them.
It's interesting to hear that Adrian's got that level of input as well, isn't it?
So just a combination of it. Yeah, I mean, look, there's no point having him just to ride on the race. He knows, if you like, what budget we've got to spend over a year, and he knows that can only be spent once, if you like. So there's no point him being involved. And we do actually, with some purchases, if we have the opportunity, we do actually use Adrian to go and sit on the horses before we actually come to buy them. So that would be quite a useful thing. Maybe he would at least get a feel for the horse, and look, you can't tell if a horse is going to be good or bad on home, but you can get a little bit of an idea that maybe you wouldn't get just watching the video at home or watching them in a race.
Brilliant. You mentioned Iscaria 10 there. I think, John, was that one you were a fan of last year?
Yeah, I mean, he skipped the festival last year, Ian, didn't he, to go straight to the National? But I noticed, as you mentioned before, he's got this plate entry this year. So are you looking at sending him there this year before the National, or which one would be his main target?
If all stays well over... Yeah, well, if all stays well between now and Thursday, he'll go for the plate.
Yeah.
Definitely. I've just had a nagging doubt in my mind for a little while now that I'm not sure he completely stays. He doesn't tend to find that much off the bridle, and he travels well in his races and just doesn't quite get home. I mean, look, I know it's over further, but in the National Hunt Chase, he jumped the last in front, and look, I mean, there weren't bad horses. Galvin and Next Destination came back at him, but again, when he came to take the lead at the last, you thought he would have gone away. The Grand National last year, I mean, I think he ended up finishing 9th, which was, it doesn't do justice to the race he ran. He was up in the vanguard all the way. He was travelling very well, and then the petrol light cut out, and he then ended up just sort of getting home, if you like. And even in the Thyestes on his last start, he was travelling very nicely, second or third. And when they turned in, he didn't get there. So I've always had in my mind that I'm not sure he does get home. So when we were looking at options like this one, we just thought, well, why not try him as a sort of class horse, if you like, in somewhere like a plate? And if he was to run very well and look like this is his distance, then we might look at the Topham instead of the Grand National himself. If he was to get outpaced over this trip and then maybe run on, then maybe I'll be wrong. He does want further, and we might just looking at him riding differently at Aintree. Last time he was up there prominent the whole way. You might then look at dropping him and creeping forward and passing horses and try to give him an easier race.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that he's quite consistent, isn't he? So he doesn't really drop much in the handicap either.
Yeah, exactly.
And a couple of pounds.
Yeah, I mean, he's just there, and he just hovers around that 150, 151 bracket, and it doesn't seem to go anywhere. On the positive, he gets into the races, but the negative is he's probably got nothing to hide from handicap.
Maybe creeping into the race, like you say, and passing horses might sort of spring him into action, in those final furlong or so.
Yeah, that's something that we might look. I think over the shorter trip in the plate, I think we'll still look to be prominent with him to take advantage, because he has been running well over 3 miles, just not getting home. So maybe look to. But if he was outpaced, you might then look at something like an Aintree National with him creeping into it and just seeing how that goes. If he was to run in a Topham, you might look at something like a Galway plate, I guess. If he was that mid-distance horse, that's always got quite a high ceiling. Top rated seems to be quite high in that. So he would probably get in on a nice weight there. But something like that might be an option after a Topham if it was intermediate trips that we were looking at.
Yeah. I'll keep following him anyway.
Yeah.
There's a big weight difference. Look, I mean, he qualifies for the Veterans Chases next year. So once he's qualified, given he's likes the soft ground, the final at Sandown in 18 months' time might be something we're looking at, because he hasn't got many miles on the clock.
Yeah, he is quite lightly raced, isn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't. He's quite a big horse. He does sometimes get quite light after his races, so you don't want to race him too often with that. But no, look, back to the original point, he does go to the plate with. Look, it's a hard task dropping in, tripping off that weight, but he's well at home, and fingers crossed all goes well.
Cheers.
Fingers crossed again. We'll be watching closely.
We will.
Boss man, come on, Ian. You want to chuck a question out there?
No, I'm more interested in Free Card Bragg. I've seen it's been touted on a lot of the Cheltenham previews, and a lot of people not quite sure where it's potentially going, if it's going to go to the Pipe or to the Bartlett. Do you know roughly, an idea where it potentially could go?
I'd be very, very surprised if he wasn't in the Albert Bartlett.
Ah, okay.
So no, look, I mean, few reasons. Well, firstly, I think some people seem to think we're not going to go for the Martin Pipe because Adrian can't ride. Look, that's not an issue. That's made no difference when it comes to the thinking. We've ran Escaria 10 in the Martin Pipe. We ran IA Connect last year in the Martin Pipe. So, yeah, we have chosen to run horses in the Martin Pipe before, obviously without Adrian. So that's nothing that is the reason. I think his pedigree is all about stamina. He's related to horses like Idle Talk that were 4 milers, and we've always had in our mind 3 mile will be what he wants. And the thing that I've really liked about him is even going back to his herding debut at Galway, he's in front of Sander Clegane, and he's probably, I don't know, 2 lengths clear. And then you look at, I looked away, I was in Galway that day, I walked up to go back to the winner's enclosure after seeing him through, watched the replay on the television afterwards, and he was, I think, 6 or 7 lengths clear, and you think, you know, I thought he'd have won 2.5 or 3. It was just that last bit, the head went down, and it was the same at Fairyhouse on his last start. You know, he jumped the last 4 or 5 lengths clear, and you think, all right, he'll go away and win 6. And whether or not it was Adrian really getting stuck into him, so he went above 145, so he didn't get into the pipe, if that's what he's thinking. But he ended up winning 12 lengths, and you would never have thought he would have won 12 just, you know, from coming into the last. So he's always hit the line hard. He's a strong stayer, and but that's where we are. So
and it's a very open Albert Bartlett as well this year. There's no
I think
real
it's a good Albert Bartlett as well.
There?
You know.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, I was very impressed by Corbett's Cross, what he did over 2 miles last time. I mean, although I think it's probably been a little bit forgotten that, you know, 2 mile at Navan in November, we weren't beaten that far by Imagine, and Willie Mullins' horse won the race. Imagine was second and we were third on probably good to soft yielding ground that day. So, yeah, we've got a bit of graded form as well over 2 miles. And so we just hit the line hard, and I think with his pedigree, and if the ground is on the dry side in a Martin Pipe, where the conditionals, you know, it can be quite hard. I was just worried that he might be almost out of his comfort zone a little bit early.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might go quite hard early in it, and he would come. Whereas in the Albert Bartlett, I think he'll just travel much better, and I'm sure that 3 mile trip will be absolutely made for him. So I think he'll travel and then be able to stay on from that on that one. And I guess probably the final thing is there's a Punchestown Red Mills Series final that he qualified in Galway. It's not a graded race, but it's quite a valuable race. So over 2.5 miles, something like that. So if he didn't win the Albert Bartlett by not staying, we could drop him back for the 2.5 mile race at Punchestown.
Okay.
You know, he'd be a pretty short price favourite for that if we went that route. Whereas, you know, if you run in a Martin Pipe, you know, you might win it and then you don't qualify for the final at Punchestown because of the conditions of the race. You can't win a graded race. So it's, you know, there's a few quirks there, but you know, I just think, yeah, how we look at it, the Martin Pipe's probably the option. Is staying power, how he hits the line, what the pedigree says, what people who have ridden him and seen. And we sourced him, going back to the question before, from Sean Doyle, from Monbeg, sort of where we got the World's End from. I think he also had Love Envoy. I think that was one of Sean's. And we went to sort of see Sean in the springtime, and we bought a few horses off him unraced that we liked the pedigrees, we liked how they looked, and Adrian had sat on them. And one was North Lodge, one was 3-card Bragg, one was Twin Power that goes for the EBF at Sandown on Saturday, and the other one was Sporty Jim, who won a race in Perth last year. So look, it was a good thing, you know, good deal we did from Sean that day. So no, everyone sort of who we've sort of spoken to and our own ideas think that 3 miles the race thing.
Perfect.
Excellent.
And how about Thunder Rock? See, obviously he's entered at the moment in the Brown Advisory. I thought he didn't jump particularly well, did he, in the Dipper on at Cheltenham on, was it Trials Day or New Year's Day? But I mean, he closed quite well.
New
I
Year's
think
Day.
he was about 10 lengths down at the last, wasn't he? And he closed to about 2 or 3 lengths of the winner. That was that real whacker. So I mean, he must have a good chance, I guess, in the Brown Advisory.
Well, the top 2 horses in the Brown Advisory are obviously Jerry Colombe that beat us at Sandown, and the real whacker who beat us in the Dipper. So we weren't too far behind either. And when they were first and second favourite, you think, well, we'd have to be going, because we're that far behind them. Come the Wednesday, we're probably going to be in the frame. Obviously, but have treatment on his back prior to running, but they can't have it too close to the race. So he was all set and primed for the race at Ascot, the graded race at Ascot the weekend before Christmas. And obviously Ascot was called off. It was frozen off. So we didn't end up going to Ascot. So the Dipper was a sort of like second thought, if you like. And issue will have worn off over that 2-week period, because obviously it was done for Ascot, and you couldn't do it in between Ascot and Cheltenham. It was too close. So that's now, he's been treated for it ahead of Wednesday, and it's all set primed that it's as sort of close as you can get to Cheltenham. So I do expect him to jump much better than he did in the Dipper, not having had that meeting called off in between that we were being aimed for. So if he was to jump better, then you'd have to think we'd be finishing pretty close to the real whacker. Albeit I think Jerry Colombe will be quite a hard horse to beat.
And then sort of going back to a horse that you mentioned earlier, Spartan Army. You mentioned you possibly using him as sort of dual purpose. Is the plan to go to Cheltenham and then possibly race over the flat in the summer?
We won't go to Cheltenham with him. He's been quite disappointing. He's not replicating on the race course what he's showing at home. So the plan for him, we're going to go to Ascot the first Sunday in April, I think it is. There's a juvenile handicap hurdle at Ascot that day, and if he runs well there and he looks like 2 mile, then he'll probably go to Sandown for the last day of the season. There's a valuable novice handicap on that. I think it's £100,000 novice handicap final. Otherwise, we might look to step him up in trip, but once we get to May, then that will be him done for jumping, and then we'll look to go back on the flat with him. I think he only had 3 runs for Joseph, so there should still be some improvement there. So another couple of runs over hurdles, and then we'll be going back on the flat.
Excellent.
And once the excitement of the festival's all over next week, the Wolf in the Midlands National, is he running in that?
If he gets in, he'll run in the Ultima or the Kim Muir first of all. He won't. He won't do both, but he wouldn't be a certain runner in the Midlands National. We've got him in the Ultima, where I don't think he'll get in. He needs a lot to get out, but he's got a better chance of getting in the Kim Muir on the Thursday. And through his performance at Cheltenham at the end of October, when he was second to Lord Accord, I actually think he's £14 better off with that horse for being beaten about 4 lengths. So if he puts his best foot forward, and that's the problem with the Wolf, he's a quirky individual. He's got his own ideas, and he's quite a challenging ride. But since the blinkers have gone on him, the last 2 starts, he ran quite well at Ascot last time, when he finished 4th in a valuable handicap, which was a bit close to Musselburgh. So we only went in it because it was so valuable. But no, so all being well, he'll go for a Ultima or a Kim Muir, and if we don't get in either of them 2, then we'll obviously look at the Midlands National on the Saturday. And we do have Autonomous Cloud with Fergal O'Brien also entered in that, and he'll have that option and the 3 mile novice handicap on the same card.
It looks like he's got a mark of 130 in for the Ultima. So
he keeps,
as you say, he's literally right
running
down
well without winning. He tends to find 1 too good.
Yeah, he's 44th in the list, so there's there's hope in the Kim Muir that a few of them will drop out.
Yeah, we got dropped to
double entered
for the race at Ascot, which was surprising, and I guess you can't complain about getting dropped.
Yeah, I think he's probably got only by looking at the declarations we've got. I think
we'll have an idea. We'll have an idea tomorrow. But the last couple of years, the Ultima hasn't filled. They're two different. But, they're effectively the same race. The Ultima is obviously an open handicap over 3 miles, and the Kim Muir's an 0 to 145. So there'll be horses that if they confirm for the Ultima, then that improves your chance for the Kim Muir. But if they go for the Kim Muir, it improves your chance of getting in the Ultima.
Okay.
So we'll just look. We'll have an idea tomorrow. The 5-day entries are tomorrow, so we'll have a bit more of an idea. But all being well, he'll be a second string in the Ultima. If not, then we'll hope he's in the Kim Muir, and then third time lucky, hopefully getting a Midlands National. But he's a horse with a lot of ability, but he's just a bit quirky.
But he's sitting on a nice mark.
So no, look, I think he's he is on a nice mark, but I think he's been on a nice mark for a while. But he just there's a nice race in him, but he just hasn't put it all forward yet. And hoping because he's got reasonable form at Cheltenham. He finished second there in October and on New Year's Day last year. So he has got reasonable course form, but tends to run quite well without winning.
I think the last one we got here, Iain, is Fingal Bridge in the bumper.
Look, I mean, fingers for you. He worked very well today. He won impressively at Chepstow on Welsh National. He won by... Probably the winning distance was exaggerated because a horse who pulled clear with him sort of stumbled on the flat, and it would have been them two would have been first and second. So the distance was probably exaggerated a little bit, but he worked well today, and he will either go for the champion bumper or the bumper at Uttoxeter on Midlands National Day.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've got quite a few nice bumper horses within the squad at the moment, but we just took the decision that he would probably be the one who would sort of probably in a position mentally, I guess, to get a coat with Cheltenham to run the.
Talking of nice bumper horses you've got, that in the water side looked very impressive.
Yeah, very exciting. He'll be a nice horse. He's now been pretty much put away for the season now. He likes some softer ground and doesn't like that's going to happen in the short term. And he's probably done all he needs to do. 1, 2 races. So, he's a big horse. I'm surprised we've even managed to get 2 bumpers into him, to be honest. But he should be a really nice horse for next season. For mid to staying novice hurdles. But no, he is one that we would be possibly. I mean, Paul's got a very good record, hasn't he, in some of those staying novice hurdles leading up to a Challow or something. So, you wouldn't know if he was to be up to that level. But Paul's had a lot of bumper winners do very well this year. Obviously, sort of in the water side and Thames Water from our sort of team, if you like, and then. He's had a lot of other nice ones. Captain T, wrapped up in May for Johnny De La Haye. I think he's had a few for Michael Gagan as well, Larchmont Lass and horses like that. So, Paul is going to find it hard to keep some of these staying novices apart if they are good. But I guess that's the challenge you want. You don't mind winning a couple of horses in a nice race if you're a trainer because it increases your chances.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Any more questions, gents?
Yeah, I guess. Well, no, go on, Iain.
No, go on, you go, Alex.
Okay. Iain, what would you say of all the runners you've got sort of penciled in for the festival at the moment? Which would you say would be your biggest chance for festival week? And then secondly, the horses that you've obviously got sort of either bumper horses or novice horses for next season, which would you say you're most excited for those as well?
Well, 3-card drag will be the best chance of the week. I think the odds sort of tell you that. It's quite nice to have the best chance on a Friday as well, because if we don't have a winner Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, at least I can keep telling Max and the family it's okay, the best chance is still to come. Whereas if we say 300-5 and that doesn't finish in the frame, then, well, if that's our best chance, what hope have we got for the rest of the week? So he's probably the best chance. And exciting horse for next year who's not going to run at the festival. Probably in the Waterside, I'd say. I mean, look, the pair of them in the Waterside and Thames Water, the sort of the two horses with Paul that won bumpers this year should both hopefully pay their way in novice hurdles next season, and fingers crossed this time next year we're talking about them.
Excellent, thank you.
All right.
Great man. Go on.
That was going to be my question. What Alec was saying, potentially anything for next year.
Can I pick another one for you then to increase my chances?
Go on, Ian. Go on. Yeah.
There's probably going to Ireland for one. There's a horse called Cato Capone. He won his bumper first. He won his bumper first time out at Punchestown. He actually finished second to Encanto Bruno in his point-to-point.
Oh,
I was going to say Encanto Bruno because Alex is very keen on Encanto Bruno.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
So Cato Capone, he disappointed a bit at Leopardstown over Christmas, but few things weren't really in his favour then. So I think he will be a nice hurdler for next season in Ireland.
Brilliant.
And I guess we've got three-card brag. So.
Yeah.
Final one from me, Ian, as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, Max is a big fan of Blackburn. Are we likely to see a horse named after Ben Brereton Diaz at some point?
We have actually reserved the name Brereton Diaz, but I think he signed a pre-contractual agreement with Villarreal, so he'll have to find a Spanish owner who can take that off him, or at least that was the rumour. His contract's up at the end of this season, so I think if Blackburn were to get promoted with Diaz topping the scoring charts, he might still do it. But if he leaves on a Bosman, I don't think Max will be too keen just to name one. But he's got a few other Blackburn associated names. I think he's got Arte Labore, which is their motto from the badge. He's got that reserved. He's got Jack Walker reserved. I'd say when Jack Walker gets used as a name, you can be pretty sure that the horse is showing us something at home for him to saddle him with that name. No, they're the sort of. He's got Champions 95 as well. So no, he's got a few Blackburn names ready to go. But as we have more horses that we own in partnership with people, it's hard enough finding one Blackburn fan without finding two. So we don't.
I remember Shearer from the past that you had as well.
Yeah, we've still got Shearer, although he's going to go novice chasing now. But if that doesn't improve, he'll be on the transfer list, so to say.
We'll have a look out for Colin Hendry.
He did look at getting Ooh Colin Hendry, which is apparently the song they used to sing, and he tried to get Sutton, but actually Sutton was taken. And he's also got Super Atco after Mark Atkins, a bit of a Blackburn cult figure. So he has a few, but now we own them with people. They don't particularly want players named after Blackburn when they support West Ham or Plymouth Argyle or whoever else we find to support them. So no, but so they might be there for a little while anyway, those names, until we get buy one outright. But no, he enjoys naming them after Blackburn. Obviously, it's something that him and his brothers were very keen followers, and spent a lot of time travelling up and down the country and around Europe watching them.
We'll definitely keep an eye out for those Blackburn related ones then.
Yeah, he normally. I mean, look, Shearer's not worked out, but he's been a nice horse, and he was going well at home. Look, maybe taking to chasing will be something that sparks some improvement into him. But no, if there's especially and obviously we had Ewood Park that got a bad injury and never sort of came back to form, so that was a bit wasted on him. But he was showing a lot of promise at home. But when the name Jack Walker appears on a horse, you can be pretty confident that's been going very, very well at home.
Right, I'll note that one down.
That's one to know.
Well, it comes to something when you name it. You're putting a name down for a horse that doesn't exist yet. But no, right. So no, no. Look, and I guess if there's probably one, and we've not seen it run yet, so we don't know anything. There's a horse called 203, which we bought from the store sales last year that'll go. We own it with the same lads that Max owns 3-card drag with, and that's probably going to go to the bumper at Fairy House, the big sales bumper Easter time. So that might be, it's by Jetaway, the same sire as 3-card drag.
Okay.
So that one might be, look, it could be a completely useless, but it's going okay at the moment. And as Max keeps telling me, sort of, most of our good horses begin with the letter T. So we had to come up with a T. So he's got Thunder Rock, Threeunderthrufive, 3-card drag. So yeah, we had to, and some have numbers in as well. Hence 203 is the name of the horse.
Yeah, Alascaria 10.
Yeah, so I would say there's another one with a number. You're better at this than I am.
Yeah.
So he's a bit superstitious. But if they all go wrong next week, then we'll be ditching the T's to the first names and numbers and all that.
Brilliant.
Right. Well, I think we've probably taken up far too much of your time, Iain. But once again, thank you ever so much. Some absolutely fantastic insight.
No, not a problem. And look, I'm sure, after the festival, if all's gone wrong and you want any analysis, I'm sure Max will either do something himself or get me on to talk some more rubbish.
Brilliant. Well, we wish you the very best of luck for next week.
Cheers, lads. Thanks a lot.
And for the rest of the jump season.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, keeping sound. We've had quite a bad run with injuries and this year, so if we keep them sound between now and the end of the year, I think we'll do okay.
Brilliant. And there are two of us here who are Welsh, who are meant to be known for their singing, but we're not going to saddle you with that. But most importantly, before we go, a very happy 70th birthday to Mr. Turner, and for allowing us to steal your time away from the celebrations there, to come and very kindly talk to us.
She's probably had a fantastic 40 minutes without me to do it. And if I time it well, the cake will just be coming out, so I can get stuck straight into that.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No worries. Thanks a lot, lads.
Thanks
Have a good week next week yourselves. Fingers crossed you've got plenty of winners.
Thanks, Iain.
Cheers.
Cheers, lads. All the best. Take care. Bye.
Right.
Bye.